this too, but I don't know what the acoustics are in here, so I'll use it. I'll lift it up and use it. Can you hear me now? Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to read probably 4 poems from my most recent book, Scripture of Crows, with thanks to its publisher, Roger Moody. I hope you all are patrons of Silverfish Review books. Roger does great work on those. And then I'm going to read 4 or 5 new poems. I've been writing up a storm to survive the recent political chaos. So I'll read you some of those. I'm going to start. Margaret asked me to read an insect poem. So I'll start with one from Insects of South Corvallis, and this one is dedicated to Roger. It's called Silverfish. Are you a fan of silverfish? Kind of. Yeah, I have mixed feelings about silverfish. These shy bristletails are quick as calligraphy. Squashed, they make a vague Chinese ink wash across the paper. I know I seem inscrutable to them, an American blue-collar male, married but solitary, scratching poems in the night, while they busy themselves being law-abiding insects, metamorphosing nymph to adult without complaining, even though it's a hell of a headache. The millions of eggs they lay in my walls, I can forgive. What I hate is, maybe somebody's got to do it, but it fills me with loathing. They eat books. Okay. Our reading had to be rescheduled. It was originally scheduled like in January. Is that when we were going to do it?
February.
Yeah. Right, because Howard and Margaret got very sick, and I was kind of sick too. So I think we were maybe all sick a little bit at that time. And so I'm going to start with a poem to banish illness. It's called, it's a love poem. I'm going to start with a couple love poems. This is for my wife, Kappa. It's called Walking Pneumonia. Coughing and wheezing, we're out for a walk, pausing often to gawk at a crocus, to hack and spit. We'd be fools to believe the worst is behind us, to let these red-eyed vireos, ferreting insects from the maple, infect us with their feverish appetites, their vehement happiness. When a skein of geese honks over, you squeeze my hand and gasp with pleasure. We are fools. We do believe. We lean our heads together and watch a pair of vultures circle above us, soaring higher and higher until they wheel clean out of sight. So we made it through that, and we'll make it through more. Here's a little ecology poem. Traces the energy flows through a little local food web, kind of. It's called Morning Song at Billy Meadows. Billy Meadows is a cabin in Wallowa County in the far northeastern part of the state, Forest Service cabin where Fish Trap has hosted some writers' residencies. And I was the first one to do it. So I spent a month alone at this little cabin, totally out in the middle of nowhere. Good for writing. Morning Song at Billy Meadows. It's in six little parts. I can tell the deer have been here by the outward flow of the air. The overnight rain has moved into the ground, where it continues raining, wending its way past worms. The roots of the grasses are proud. They think the rain has come to anoint them. Grasses suffer the vanity of being plain. Some flowers will die today into seeds. My life has pockets I've never emptied. But the house cricket will leave the house, and the field cricket will come indoors. And sometimes you realize that the blood you gave to mosquito is what makes the bluebird so blue. That was a nice moment when I realized that all those mosquito bites were going to turn into bluebirds. It made me happy. I want to read a poem that's about my friend, my late friend, the poet Richard Doncliffe. How many of you know Richard's poetry? A few, but too few. Richard taught at OSU. I was a reclusive gardener man. We were very close friends based on his gardening as well as his poetry. But at the time of his death, he was one of the best poets in the Northwest, for sure. Richard had a lot of books in his closet when he died, and some of us have some of those. And I have brought a couple of Richard's books, Off Watch and Westerns. If you're interested, those are for free. Please take a book of Richard's home with you, and you'll see what a fine poet he was. He was an odd man, reclusive, as I said, also incredibly thrifty, and this poem tries to capture a little bit of those twin characteristics of Richard Doncliffe. It's called Black Bug. Hunched over the wheel of his 35-year-old Volkswagen, snap brim cap tugged low, my old friend Richard drives past the courthouse with 2 bales of straw wedged in the back seat. He doesn't see me wave, intent as he is on driving well below the speed limit, with a log truck bearing down on his tail, downshifting, blatting out black exhaust. I can taste that trucker's anger, the whole culture's impatience with the Richards of the world, poking along, attending to small things. Among the few who remain unseduced by the glamour of speed, Richard ages uncomplainingly, a John Keats grown more peculiar by the day, negative capability incarnate. I meant to ask Anita if it was okay if I read this poem, and I forgot to, but I'm going to do it anyway. So
I'll settle with you later.
Some of you probably are aware that before Anita mutinied and moved to Eugene, she lived in Corvallis, and I was in a writing group for many years with Anita, and we miss her. And she still probably does a little bit now, but then full-time worked as a piano tuner. One day I visited her at a place where she was tuning the piano, and I don't actually remember the circumstances, but I was just kind of standing there around watching Anita as she did her work and carried on a monologue. It was almost a diatribe at the piano. And I went straight home and wrote down some of the things she said, and that formed the basis of this poem. So I say this poem is about and partly by Anita Sullivan. For the purposes of the poem, I transformed it into that she was tuning my piano, but that's a fiction. It's called The Piano Tuner. With her head under the lid of my hopeless spinet, her voice comes out minor chorded. I am sick of tuning pianos. I need travel. I need romance. Now she rifles through her toolbox for a chisel, and she jabs it toward my chest. Don't you ever waste a minute. Bones clicking in her slender wrists. She's angry, but more important, she's 50 and broke, and her recently electric love life's fizzling. On her knees, oiling the pedals, I need to do something hard. Her imperious soul talking, spurring on the slim, Bersitic girl. Too poor to revisit Greece. She's been talking with the Peace Corps about Albania. If I wanted a serious challenge, I'd go home to Raleigh and take care of my parents. Dashing off a few quick scales. That's it. That's all I can do. This piano should be taken outside and shot. With a cackling laugh, she bends to the keyboard, dark hair falling over her face, and bangs out a dirge. I dreamed last night I was on the beach with a chain-smoking Greek. He played the bouzouki, and I danced with the edge of the surf. My friend. Okay, a few new poems. There's a construction boom happening in Corvallis. I bet you have it going on too. Mostly student housing. But a lot of nursing homes too. So both ends of the spectrum. This is about one of the nursing homes. It's called Willamette Springs Memory Care. They've thrown up a new nursing home between those two low hills halfway to Philomath. Bland, rambling ranch style, must be 40 rooms with a covered drive-through entry like a motel. It used to be a wrecking yard 30 years ago. Junk cars packed together, mirror to mirror, leaking oil into the earth. I found an alternator for my old Ford pickup there once. Window boxes, dripping petunias, automatic sliding glass entry doors. Sign says, accepting new residents. I vowed never to let myself be put away in such a place. Although, of course, I may forget. Birds. Boy, I've been thinking about birds a lot lately. I'm kind of a lifeline. I was thinking about this. This came up when a sparrow banged into our window, as they so frequently do. I heard the thud and looked outside, and there it was laying on the ground. I opened the window, and it got up into the way, and I was happy. But I got thinking, and birds are predated a lot by the cats and others, but where'd all the birds go that die of old age? What happens to birds? So that's what this is called, Birds Dying of Old Age. It's 4 short little poems. The sparrow decided eons ago that when her time came, she'd just give up fighting the fleas and ticks and lie down in the duff and close her eyes and let the little people eat her back to the earth. Just let me get back to Mexico, the turkey vulture is thinking, halfway across the Gulf, his shoulder socket grinding with pain. Back to my favorite tree with the cow bones scattered underneath and that beautiful view across the empty chaparral. The storm petrel was traveling solo, riding a northeasterly off Kamchatka when her heart stopped. She crumpled into a feathered clump, and the wind carried her a few miles farther before dropping her into the North Pacific. And Anna's hummingbird laps up a nightcap from our feeder, then returns to his favorite viburnum. As darkness descends, he latches his claws around a familiar twig and falls asleep and never wakes up. The scarlet feathers of his gorget fade, but for years his desiccated body will remain perched there on the branch. I don't think that could happen, but I like the idea of it. Well, poetry has been kind of keeping me going through these dire times. How many times can you get stabbed in the stomach with anger and revulsion? Boy, it's never occurred to me. It never happened anything close to it in my lifetime. But I have been trying to process some of that through poetry, processing it any way I can, spending a lot of time outdoors. But I also have been trying to write a few poems to fight back. Here are a couple in which I escape briefly from the madness and come home revived. More birds. This is called Ravens at Brighton Bush. You thought you came here to escape the news of the savaging of the Republic, but all the strangers in the hot tubs, who usually confide their yoga injuries and cleansing diets, are clamoring fear and politics. So you hole up in your cabin to sulk alone. But then at dusk, 5 ravens swoop through the firs on their way to their roost, and you feel the thrust of their wings in your own chest and taste their acrid cries in your throat. Deep in the night, you awaken to silence and think of the ravens out there in the ancient trees with their black wings banked around the coals of their hearts and their bright minds smoldering. At dawn, when the ravens rush back from their overnight bastion and scrabble on your roof as the sun rises, you mark how they drive the darkness back into all its crevices, and you realize you're ready to re-enter the fray. Okay, this poem is different than anything. This is a testament to how weird things have gotten recently. I never would have thought I would write anything remotely like this poem. It's rhyme quatrains with an epigraph from Rilke. It was published in terrain.org. Do you folks know terrain.org? Wonderful online magazine, really beautifully done. Terrain.org, check it out. They're doing a series called Letters to America. Some prose and poetry, and oftentimes illustrated with, and I believe they're going to compile them into a book because they've gotten some really powerful pieces. So this was published actually on Inauguration Day. It's a fantasy. Since nothing else seemed to be working against the incoming administration, I invoked a mythic character to help out, and it also alludes to one of the few silver linings, the outpouring of progressive solidarity and art and in resistance to the current president. So that's what this is all about. You know that sonnet to Orpheus, "O tall tree in the ear, a new beginning, beckoning change appeared." A tree in the ear, Rilke imagines Orpheus. Orpheus's song is a tree in the ear, a bizarre image that's always stuck with me, so I picked up on that. This is called Orpheus Intercedes. Appalled by what he wouldn't hear, I planted a tree in the president's ear. I downloaded sonnets and songs to his phone and enchanted his daughters with my lyre. And suddenly, the president began to hear birds twittering everywhere. He tasted the rising ocean's foam and began to sweat the atmosphere. As the roots of the tree grew into his brain, his mountains of loot turned to soil. He ordered more solar panels installed on the roof. He divested the country from oil. Oh, pure insurance. Oh, bottom line. Oh, fear for his children's insolvency. The president went mad for peace and a steady state economy. Then his furious minions turned on their boss. They tore his arms from his chest. They scattered his hair on the White House lawn. Pigeons wove it into their nests. No human is more than a passing song. The president has played his part. The tree in his ear grew tall and set seed. Now the whole country is overgrown by art. Thank you. A lovely fantasy. I know it's what's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen. This is another poem. This is my last poem. It's another poem about I don't know what's going to happen. But doing what we can do. This is called At Nescowan on President's Day. Dingy green carpet, pink formica countertops, fragrance of mildew and sanitizer. I've always liked this motel. And what better place than a tsunami-doomed beach town at the westernmost edge of the continent on a faux national holiday, a month into this feckless new administration's deconstruction of reality, to contemplate the rapid erosion of democracy. From the dinky balcony, I listen to the steady cursing of the surf until the maid starts vacuuming the unit next door. Then, in rain bibs and parka with the hood pulled up, I slouch out into a pizzling mist. 1 block over, a big old Sitka spruce has been completely uprooted. Last night's storm has strewn all the narrow streets with branches, as if some sad, destructive parade has marched through. On the beach, amid the storm rack, a party of gulls eviscerate a dead seal, pecking at the pink and blue entrails like soothsayers reading the auguries or commentators dissecting the presidential election. With the tide coming in and the drizzle thickening into actual rain, I trudge on, wondering what on earth can be done. March, send money, undo the years of gerrymandering, spit in the ocean. Finally, a rainbow pops out from gunmetal clouds. I nod to a young man sitting on a drift log watching his little daughter drag a 6-foot-long bull kelp toward the waves. No one can say where this country is headed. The young girl doesn't know how it works. But I'm going to try to adopt her brave, motley attitude toward the future. Dressed in blue fleece, pink tights, and yellow rubber boots, she splashes into the shallows. "Dad," she yells, "I'm putting it back." And she slings the long, slippery plant back into the surf. Thank you very much.